Well, welcome to the next episode of Supporting Leaders. I have a special guest today. Melinda and I both went to college together. And so I'm going to read a little bit of Melinda's bio to you here. It's quite impressive. But Melinda she has a really varied career. And I think that that's one of the many reasons why she makes a great guest on this show. But she's been in education for 13 years. She graduated Magna Cum Laude from MSUM with a double Bachelor of Arts in English with an emphasis on writing and a minor in communication studies, and a Bachelor in English and secondary education. That had to have been quite the grueling 4 years, a little bit more intense than mine, I think. So Melinda did teach for a year in language arts in Minnesota. Then she earned her master's of education with an emphasis in library and information technologies. And then she started work for the Minnesota School of Business. Here she held various roles, including Dean of Faculty, Dean of Students, Dean of Education, and Campus Director. After leaving Minnesota School of Business, Melinda worked as a curriculum designer at Minnesota State. After this, Melinda worked at White Earth Tribal and Community College as the Dean of Student Services and later as Academic Dean. She re-entered K through 12 education in 2019 and has enjoyed working with students and also teachers and staff. And so, I know Melinda personally, and just to share too a little bit more about her, but she enjoys spending time with her husband, Matt. She's got a child and she's got another one here in a couple days. They are avid outdoors people. They enjoy being outside. When they're not outside, she likes to create by sewing, quilting, decorating, doing crafts with the kids, pretending to be a farmer, she says, with a handful of chickens and a dog. She'd love to be off the grid, but loves Pinterest, Instagram, and streaming TV too much. Her passions in education is to get people the tools they need to be able to be creative and complete their goals. Watching people have personal growth and develop new skills is exciting. So Melinda, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive right in because I find watching you and your career and your journey like fascinating because again, so both of us were earning our doctorate degrees in leadership when we met. And then, you heard all that bio that I read of all the different things that you've done and, being a mom and having children. And so let's just start with like, what's leadership to you? What does leadership mean to you?
Well, I think that throughout my career, leadership has meant something really different. I think at the beginning, I had a lot of perceptions about what that would mean and what it would feel like to be the leader. And then when I did step into roles that were really leadership focused, I found that it was really fun and engaging and like also really lonely because you're the one that's making the decisions and you're the one that's trying to coach people and you're the one having all these conversations with people that you can't really bounce off others. And I really enjoyed the challenge of trying to figure out what people wanted to do and how we could empower them to do that. One of my favorite examples of what I feel like leadership is I had this librarian that worked for me at Minnesota School Business, and she was very quiet. And I'm a trained librarian, so I know that a lot of librarians are pretty quiet. But she came in for like her annual review, and I said, what is it that you would like to do more of? Like, what is it you think you're missing or that you just would enjoy to do more this year? And she said, what I really want to do is go into classrooms and teach. And I was like, that's not at all what I was going to guess that she wanted to do. So, okay, well, I will talk to teachers and set that up, and you go in and do it. And I did. I got a few teachers to agree who were all just as surprised as I was. And
Yeah.
then she went in and did her presentations. And I went and watched some of them, and it was like a totally different person. She was so excited, and she did these like really great presentations, and the kids were really engaged. And so I guess from that, I learned that we don't really have the answers as leaders. We're trying to figure it out. And it's more about asking the questions and
Mhm.
then listening to that response. So I had that opportunity. But as my career has progressed, I've moved into different roles, and a lot of them really intentionally, like out of the traditional leadership track and onto a different track. And I think through that, I really found that one of the principles that we studied back at Creighton was a Jesuit. principle about how everybody's a leader and everybody leads at the same time. And when we studied it, I'll be honest, I was like, that's not a thing. Like, cool, great idea, but that's not really how it works. But as I've moved through to different roles to where I'm at right now, where I teach part-time and I do some administrative work for the school, and I do like a whole bunch of other kind of roles within the school. So I
Mhm.
feel more like a teacher again. And I feel like we all do lead. All the teachers there are leaders. All of our students are leaders in our classroom, and we're all leading at the same time. It's just that everybody has a different intention. And then when you realize that, those are the kids and the teachers and the administration that really shine as leaders.
Yeah,
So it's been interesting evolution.
yeah, I love that perspective because, when we were going through that program and I was a teacher and I kept thinking too, like, gosh, I really want a leadership position. I really want a leadership position. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, I am in one, like, I'm a teacher, like, I'm leading these kids, I'm leading like with my colleagues at work. And so um, I think that that's great perspective. So one of the things I really want to ask you too, earlier I interviewed Kristen I, who's an elementary principal, and she talked about how, like, she went to her first interview, she was 8 weeks pregnant, like
Yes.
I've been in a principal situation where I'm pregnant. And, I think as a woman who's in leadership, as a woman who's a mom who has a family, like, I mean, like, there's so much guilt that comes with that, right? But I want to ask you on the other end, like, did you feel guilt like stepping away from some of the big boss, kind of positions that you had? Like, did that go through your mind? Is it something you had to navigate?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I really did enjoy that interview with Chris. I was like, I relate with so much what she's talking about when she's unpacking, like having that bottom line priority. But for me, it was, and it still is, like an intentional step away from those traditional leadership roles. Even as recent as like last year, well, in 2019, when I transitioned out of, I was a academic dean, and also did like a dean of student services at the same time. It's a really big role that just seemed to keep growing. And professionally, that was just so exciting. Like there was so much cool stuff happening and there was so much. But at the end of the day, it wasn't what I wanted to be doing right now. Like I wanted to take that step away and go like, I'm still a leader. I'm still all those things. I'm gonna use that in a different way. And part of that is at home. And so it really is, I really have made that intentional decision to step away um, into a more family driven lifestyle right now. And there is an interesting guilt that goes with that for me is, I did do all those things. I pushed so hard in my career so fast, and I pushed so hard to go to so much school and get the degree and get the everything. And I remember somebody saying to me, like, as a joke, but saying, "Oh, it's cool that you got a doctorate to be a mom." And I was like, at the time, and now I'm like, you know what? I am a better mom because I have had those experiences. And one day, like she'll see that,
Yeah.
and he'll see that, and they'll grow up knowing that we've had these things. But at the time, it really was like okay, now I need to decide about what I want that to look like. Like, what is it? I know what it feels like to step away and go like, I'm not going to feed the professional career right now. I'm still doing meaningful work and I'm still proud of that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to step into this other role because I only get that role for a little time. Like
Yes,
it's a little window.
I respect that so much, and I hope that there's people that are listening that resonates or that strikes a chord with them, And listening to you talk now, maybe it was different when you were making this decision, but like I get this sense of just like confident. Like you seem so just at peace and so confident about making those transitions. And I want to hear from you, like, how did you know like it was time to make some of those transitions, whether it was between jobs or that transition to be like, what, I'm transitioning my leadership to like Dr. Mom now, like how did you know to do that?
Right. Right. I think a lot of it really came down to just following the gut and following the heart about it. Even not too long ago, I was offered a administrative job at a different college, and I had to wrestle with that and sit with my husband and talk about it and talk about it. And it just came to like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not, doesn't feel like the right thing. What I'm doing now and like being back in K-12 and all that feels kind of uncertain. Um, and it really wasn't a great year to re-enter K-12. I'll throw that one out there with the, and
Right.
I didn't cause that, but yes, I did re-enter this year. So there definitely have been times where I'm like, what am I doing? But I think it's like, I have this belief, and I think it comes a lot from my upbringing. Like my parents always told us to decide what we wanted to do by following our heart about it. And then when we do that, then everything will fall into place. And it's another thing that sounds really dumb when you're 17 and you're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to make this plan and I'm going to follow the plan and the plan's going to be perfect. But now I can look back and go like, yeah, that is kind of how it happens. You decide, you put that intention out there, you pray about it, think about it. And when you're walking down that path, doors open, things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me watching them, when I was growing up and even now, I'm like, that's what they've done. Like they've decided we're going to have this kind of life. When we were all kids, it's going to look like this. And then the careers and the income and all that's going to come. And it always did.
I
And
love that.
so, it's not magic.
I love
It's
that.
just
Well, and I
like,
think it's like you said, when you're 17 and you hear like follow your heart, and it's like, oh, okay, but like to
mhm,
really truly understand what that means as you grow and mature. And, you said something to me before the show that I think really connects with what you just said, but about creating your life. I love that phrase, creating your life. And you referenced your parents too when you talked about that. So tell me about,
yeah.
so they instilled this whole like follow your heart kind of thing. But then what does it mean to create your life?
Well, the best example I can think of this is I have this cousin who was like, gosh, I want to say he was like 19 years old when he did this. But he said he was looking for an internship. So he went on an interview to a business for a job that he didn't want and couldn't take. But he wanted them to make a job that would fit the thing that he needed to do. And at the time I was like, well, that's brave. And ever since then it always haunts me like, that is kind of what we want to do though. Like I went on many interviews that I don't want that job, not even interested in that job, but I'm interested in maybe one day, or maybe they'll create something that would be actually what I want. And it doesn't always work out, but sometimes I'll have that one interview and then a year later they'll call and say, oh, we hired somebody for that job, but we've been thinking about you and now we want to bring you back to contract this or do this project or whatever. I see that with a lot of people in my family. Said I live in like a pretty rural location, and there aren't a lot of opportunities that would just be like there. It would be a lot easier for me to like move to a metro area and there would be a lot of jobs opportunities and things I could work out,
Yeah.
but that isn't the kind of life that doesn't fit into our priorities. And so then within that you have to be kind of creative about what you're going to do.
Yeah. Well, like, so hearing you talk, and you earlier you talked about like the intentionality of stepping away, and it seems like you're so intentional about your life path, the life that you want. You know, has it always been like that? Have you always been like, I just know that that's what I need to do, or was it a learning journey for you to figure that out and figure out that this is what it takes to be successful in that kind of intentionality?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I try very hard to be intentional now. Um, but I think that's definitely something that is learned. And for me, it seemed like it kind of came with age. But I think part of it is when I was doing what I thought was the plan, and I was on this like track and I was doing the plan. Um, we used to play this game when I was at Minnesota School of Business, which was like, what would you call the chapter of your life that you're in right now?
Yeah.
And I would, I was like, oh, I was getting my doctorate. I was working in these administrative jobs. I was like on all these committees in the community. I was like super involved. We were busy all the time. And I was like, I feel like I'm running into a fan. And I would have like these nightmares where I would just run all night in these nightmares. And I would be like going somewhere, but I couldn't figure out where. And I was like chasing and chasing. And finally, when I had to sit with that, I realized like that's myself saying I'm not on the right track because it doesn't feel like that when you're really doing what you should be doing. I
Yeah.
could do it. You know, it went really well. I liked it. But
Yeah.
then when I got away from it, I was like, no, okay, so this is actually like that thing they were talking about with the peace. That's like a thing that you can actually have. And every day you can go home and go like, I did good work today. I made an impact on somebody, you know? And that's what I think the big picture for me became. And a lot of that comes from having children. You know,
Yeah.
you really think about what you're doing and what legacy you're leaving them and what impression you're giving them. And are you there? What does it feel like? You know, all those things. And you don't have a choice but to reflect on them when you have these little tiny people running around.
Yeah, I mean, you just gave me like goosebumps on that. I think like, how many people can relate to that? I think especially like when you're done with college, if that was the route that you took, and then it's just kind of after that, like you put your head down and you just start going, and then like for somebody who's achieving that level of education, it's like go, go, go. And then now I got to do something with that because I spent that time and that money and it's go, go, go. And it's kind of this like rat race a little bit, and to be able to
Yeah.
pull back for a second and analyze like, yes, I can do this. Yes, there's parts of it I enjoy. Am I at peace? Is this the chapter? Is this the name of the chapter that I want to be living in? And like that you get to choose. Like I get to choose what chapter I'm living in right now.
Right. And like what everything's going to look like. I mean, so one I have a couple friends that I had then and now, and they like one of my dearest friends, she always talks about the past Melinda and the new Melinda. You know, she's like, this is obviously like the real you, like you're comfortable in who you are. But like in the past, the things that were important to you just really weren't, well, they were things probably more than, real life. Like it was just this constant chasing of attainment. I just felt like we were in this really competitive program too. And there were a lot of people who were very smart. I mean, I just remember going to those first class meetings and going like, how did I end up in this group of people? Because they're so established and they got all these great things. But the ones that we were closest with really had that sense of self. Like they were doing it and they were in this program that was competitive, but not for the attainment of it, really. Like they had these other goals, and everybody's goals were so different that it really kind of woke up in me this idea that there is more than that next degree and then the books and the whatever else you're going to publish, like all that kind of stuff. There's more than that.
Yeah, well, Melinda, I'm so excited for people to listen to this because I think hopefully you've inspired in some people that like it's okay to say no and it's okay to change course, because it's just yeah, like I almost kind of hope like I hope people like watch the video too of this because like you just exude this just peace and comfortability, and I know that you're. Oh, I don't know. I guess if I was about to have a baby in a couple days, I would not be exuding peace. I'd be exuding like uncomfortability and. But before we go, like, is there like one last piece of advice or one last thing about leadership or transition or being a mom and any last words of wisdom or last piece of advice?
Yeah, I think when you said, that there's no shame in kind of saying no, I definitely back in the day, I would always say my best advice to our college kids, now I feel almost embarrassed to say it, was to like always say yes. Like you
Yeah.
always say yes. Like somebody says, I need you to go do this, you say yes. They want you to go to this fundraiser on Friday, you say yes. Like you're at everything. And I think now my advice would be really different. It would really look at like, decide what it is, like what is the core of what you want right now. And that can change. Like it's not, you don't have to be this forever. I don't intend to be Dr. Mom forever, like the way that I am right now, at least. Like one day I want to move back into traditional role to try to help other women, especially, be able to
Yeah.
make those transitions through their life. But I think it's like, think about that intention of where you're at right now and set that intention and build a life around that. And that you can do it.
I love
It's
it.
really possible to just decide on that and live in that space. And it's great.
Well said. Well, Melinda, it was a pleasure to have you on. I'm so glad that you were willing to get us in right before having a baby. And it was just such a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you for sharing.